You know that feeling, right, when you discover a mysterious new indie artist? It is, like, completely intoxicating.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a genuine victory for art.
Yeah.
Like you found a hidden gem.
Right. You were just scrolling late at night and you stumble upon this singer, and they have the messy bangs, the blurry, slightly out of focus album cover with that whole cassette tape aesthetic.
Yeah, and they're singing these hauntingly stripped down songs about, I don't know, emotional detachment and growing tomatoes in a dying industrial town.
Yes, exactly. And you totally buy into it. You read the comments praising this underground genius, and you feel like you were part of a secret club that somehow, like, beat the algorithm.
For one beautiful fleeting moment, you think, true, raw authenticity still exists out there in the wild, untouched by the corporate music machine.
But then you make one catastrophic mistake. You open Wikipedia.
Oh no, the classic mistake.
Seriously, you search their name, you scroll down to the early life section, and suddenly the illusion just shatters.
Because her father's name is a blue hyperlink.
Yep. Her mother's name is a blue hyperlink. Her uncle's name is blue. You look closer and realize even the family dog somehow has a Screen Actors Guild card.
It's so true. You realize you aren't looking at an underground outsider at all. You are looking at the child of Hollywood royalty.
And that feeling of betrayal, right? The bursting of that blue Wikipedia name bubble, that is exactly what we are breaking down today. We are pulling from this really fascinating analytical YouTube script about the whole Nepo baby discourse.
Yeah, it's such a great source. It really digs into the mechanics of this.
It does. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the, well, they call it the blue name industrial complex. We want to explore not just how the entertainment industry manufactures this indie authenticity, but why this illusion of the self-made artist triggers such intense internet paranoia.
And crucially, what it signals about the collapse of social mobility, which is a huge theme in the source material.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because what fascinates me is the cover-up. Like, if having industry parents is such an undeniable advantage, why is the music industry spending millions of dollars to actively hide it?
Well, to understand the cover-up, we really have to look at how the entire definition of indie has fundamentally shifted.
How so?
Decades ago, indie meant independent. Like literally, it meant you were not signed to a major label. You were selling CDs out of the trunk of a car, booking your own shows at dive bars, operating entirely outside the corporate structure.
Right, it was an actual business model.
Hmm,
Or a lack of one, I guess.
exactly. But today, indie is no longer a business model. It is a carefully curated aesthetic. The rebellion has been, well, it's been fully industrialized.
Wow, industrialized rebellion.
Yeah, because the major labels realized a while ago that modern audiences are cynical. We do not trust polished, untouchable, flawless pop stars anymore. That hyper-manufactured image, it just feels dated now.
It feels fake.
Right, so to sell records in the modern era, celebrities must cosplay as normal, everyday people.
Which, ironically, takes a massive amount of money to pull off. I mean, the biggest luxury in entertainment today is appearing completely effortless.
It really is. It takes a village to look like you woke up like that.
It reminds me of creating a character in a video game, but specifically like a Brooklyn character creator menu.
Well, that's a perfect way to put it.
Right. You sit down with a PR team and you just select the components. Okay, give me an oversized vintage sweater, a tiny low-budget microphone, maybe 35% film grain on the promotional photos, and an emotionally exhausted stare.
And a song title like, September Bleeds Through My Window Again.
Yes. You engineer this entire persona perfectly designed to scream, I am fragile and underground, while secretly being backed by a massive corporate machine.
And the mechanics of maintaining that illusion are incredibly sophisticated.
Yeah.
You have artists heavily leaning into the bedroom pop aesthetic.
Right, where it looks like they just recorded it in their messy room.
Exactly. They release videos that look like they were shot on a shaky smartphone at 2 in the morning, singing into a laptop on a mattress on the floor. It signals to the audience, hey, I am just like you.
But then you find out about the room.
Right, the camera is carefully angled to hide that the bedroom they are in is inside an $11 million townhouse.
Wait, really? An $11 million townhouse?
Oh, absolutely. And the audio, which sounds endearingly lo-fi and cheap, was actually mixed and mastered by a team of Grammy-winning engineers.
Who were specifically paid to make it sound cheap.
Yes. We have reached a stage where entire marketing teams are dedicated specifically to manufacturing the illusion that somebody is not being marketed to.
They are meticulously managing the PR of having no PR. Wild. But, that anger from the audience reveals a massive double standard, and I want to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, lay it on me.
With all this fake aesthetic packaging, does this mean these artists are actually bad at what they do? Like, are we just being tricked into listening to untalented musicians just because they have the right marketing budget?
That is a crucial distinction we need to make, and our source emphasizes this too. What's fascinating here is that having famous parents or a massive budget does not mean you lack talent. Not at all.
Right. It's not like they can't sing.
Exactly. If you look at people like Lily Rose Depp, Maya Hawke, or Gracie Abrams, these are people who are demonstrably good at what they do. Maya Hawke is a highly capable actress. Gracie Abrams is a compelling songwriter.
So the issue the internet is reacting to isn't a lack of talent.
No, talent is just the baseline requirement now. The core issue driving the backlash is access.
Because talent without access usually just stays in the bedroom. It doesn't get a global distribution deal.
Exactly. Let's break down the mechanics of that access by looking at two hypothetical artists, like the source video does. Person A works a minimum wage job, lives with 3 roommates, and has 0 industry contacts.
The actual struggling artist?
Right. If they want to record an album, they have to choose between buying a decent microphone or paying rent. They upload songs to SoundCloud and just pray the algorithm catches them.
And the odds of that are, frankly, terrible.
Astronomical. Now look at person B. They grew up casually knowing high-end photographers, stylists, and legendary producers. But the biggest advantage person B has isn't just a phone book full of contacts.
It's the money, right?
It's the luxury of time and the complete absence of risk. They can spend 5 years just quote-unquote finding their sound because they do not face financial ruin if a project fails.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
When person B eventually succeeds, society acts shocked, like it's some sort of miracle of raw, undeniable talent rising to the top. But it's not a miracle. It's the natural result of having a massive safety net.
But then again, devil's advocate, isn't this just gravity? I mean, humans naturally want to help their kids.
Sure, human nature.
Like, if a dentist builds a successful practice, we don't grab pitchforks when they hand that practice down to their kid. If your dad owns a family bakery, you probably grow up needing dough, and eventually you take over the bakery.
Right.
So if your parents are Hollywood royalty, suddenly A24 is very interested in your experimental short film. Why do we treat the entertainment industry so differently than a family bakery or a dental practice?
It's a great question, and we treat it differently because of the product being sold. A dentist is selling you a medical service. A baker is selling you a loaf of bread.
Okay.
But an artist is selling you their perspective. They're selling you a reflection of truth. When you buy into an indie artist's music, you are buying into their emotional worldview. You're connecting with their struggle, their heartbreak, their interpretation of the human experience.
Oh, I see what you mean.
If you find out the baker's dad bought him the oven, the bread still tastes good.
Right. A baguette is a baguette.
Exactly. But if you find out the artist singing about the grit of survival has never actually struggled a day in their life, the emotional transaction feels fraudulent. The product itself is compromised.
So it's not the privilege that makes people angry, it's the deception, the fake humility.
Precisely. People can actually tolerate unfairness surprisingly well. We all know the world isn't a pure meritocracy. What the public cannot stomach is being lied to.
Yeah, nobody likes being played.
The rage is triggered when these millionaire industry plants pretend they had to fight tooth and nail for every single opportunity. You read an interview where an actor claims they had a completely normal middle-class upbringing, and then you dig a little and find out their family vacations regularly included Steven Spielberg.
Here's where it gets really interesting because, yeah, just a normal summer at the lake, roasting marshmallows with the guy who directed Jurassic Park, completely relatable.
Right. And the system perpetuates this lie because the bootstrap narrative sells.
People love an underdog.
We are constantly fed these mythological stories about raw talent magically overcoming all odds. The unknown artist discovered while singing in a coffee shop. The actor who arrived in Los Angeles with only $20 in their pocket.
It's the classic Hollywood dream.
We love those stories.
Yeah.
But when you pull back the curtain and realize their father produced 6 HBO shows, the entire narrative collapses. It's the dishonesty that makes people sharpen their pitchforks.
Which makes me wonder how the public would react if these artists just, dropped the act entirely.
What do you mean?
What if a musician threw away the oversized sweater, put on a designer tiara, and just said, yes, I emerged fully formed from a Beverly Hills genetic dynasty. My bloodline has been media trained for 3 generations. I have never taken public transit in my life. Enjoy the album.
That would be amazing.
Wouldn't it? Would the internet be more forgiving?
It would be incredibly refreshing. And we actually see evidence of this. The source points out that self-aware artists who openly admit they won the genetic lottery and acknowledge their massive head start, they get significantly less backlash.
Because there's nothing to expose.
Exactly. Honesty disarms people. When you own your privilege, you take away the internet's power to expose you. It is specifically the defensive posturing, the wealthy artist, insisting they had it just as hard as the kid working double shifts at a diner that fuels the outrage.
But because that defensive posturing is everywhere now, audiences have developed this intense, almost paranoid reflex. We can't just consume culture normally anymore. We've all become amateur investigative journalists.
We have become auditors of authenticity.
Yeah.
And it fundamentally changes how we interact with art.
Oh, absolutely. You hear one haunting indie folk song on a Spotify playlist, and instead of just letting the melody wash over you, you immediately open LinkedIn.
Yes. You don't even stop at Wikipedia anymore. You are digging into corporate employment histories.
Totally. You want to know if their dad was the senior vice president of creative partnerships at Universal Music Group?
And when you find out he was, you just nod and think, yes. A very organic grassroots career trajectory.
It is a completely paranoid reflex, but honestly, you can't blame the audience. The entertainment industry has become so heavily curated and artificial that we just assume everything is a manufactured lie until proven otherwise.
It's a natural defense mechanism.
Yes, it really is. But there's a much darker consequence here beyond just the annoyance of fake humility. The real underground, the actual working class artists, are disappearing.
And they're disappearing for purely economic reasons. This is where the loss of authenticity stops being just a funny internet meme and becomes a legitimate cultural crisis.
Right. It has real-world impact.
It operates a lot like the gentrification of a neighborhood, but applied to culture. Wealthy artists move into the bedroom pop or indie grime aesthetic because it has cultural cachet, but in doing so, they drive up the baseline production value so high that the actual working-class kid can no longer compete.
They are priced out of their own genre.
Exactly.
Let's break down the mechanics of how they get priced out, because the music industry's economic model has completely inverted. Streaming pays, what, fractions of a penny?
Barely anything, yeah.
You cannot make a living selling recorded music anymore. The only way to survive is by touring. But touring requires massive upfront capital.
It's incredibly expensive.
You have to rent a van, buy gas, pay for gear, book cheap motels, and somehow feed yourself for 3 months, all while making almost zero profit at the door. The working class kids simply cannot afford to take a $10,000 loss on a 6-week tour.
But the wealthy kid can. The wealthy kid can treat a massive financial loss as a business expense, or just like a character-building summer project.
A fun gap year.
Right. They can afford the PR retainers, the playlist pitching services, the high-end social media managers. So when the smoke clears, the wealthy kids are the only ones left standing on the stage.
Because they could afford to wait it out.
And when entire creative industries become dominated by the upper class, the emotional texture of our culture changes. Struggle shapes art. Old underground scenes like punk, early hip-hop, or the grunge movement in Seattle, those movements emerged from intense economic pressure.
They weren't just fashion choices.
No, they were born from real dysfunction, real chaos, and the desperate need to build a community outside the mainstream.
But when you remove that economic pressure, the art changes. You lose the danger. You lose the friction. It's like the entertainment machine acts as a high-speed vacuum.
A vacuum.
Yeah, it just sucks up any genuine subculture, sterilizes it, and sells it back to us with a designer label in 6 months. It replaces actual grit with what feels like, well, corporate-approved sadness.
Corporate-approved sadness is the perfect way to describe it. The machine absorbs the aesthetic of rebellion instantly, without any of the actual stakes.
Right.
You see modern artists who are styled to look like anarchic punks, representing radical anti-establishment views. But before their second album even drops, they are signing lucrative endorsement deals with luxury perfume companies.
Oh, and sitting front row at Paris Fashion Week.
Exactly. The aesthetic of the working class is worn like a costume by people who go home to gated communities.
Because it's a closed loop. And the rise of social media means we can finally see the loop in real time. Like we can reverse engineer their lives.
It's all out in the open now.
You scroll through Instagram and realize that half of your favorite alternative edge-pushing artists all attended the same elite private performing arts high schools. They vacation together. They go to the same exclusive parties.
They operate in the exact same coastal ecosystems.
Yes, it stops feeling like a decentralized, organic underground movement and starts looking like a highly aestheticized networking event for the elite.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it brings us to the most profound and perhaps the most unsettling layer of this entire phenomenon.
Which is?
Why does a blue Wikipedia name fill us with such existential dread? It's not just about feeling tricked by a musician or annoyed by an actor's fake origin story. The blue names are a symptom of a much larger, much deeper panic about collapsing social mobility across the board.
Right. This is where we zoom out from Hollywood and look at society as a whole. The anxiety isn't just about entertainment. It's about the realization that the gates are closing everywhere.
Historically, people can tolerate massive wealth inequality as long as they believe movement between classes is still possible.
The American dream.
Exactly. If you believe the core tenet of the American dream, that a kid from a trailer park can write a brilliant script, move to Los Angeles, and actually get it made through sheer talent and grit, then you accept the system. You believe the game is fair, even if the odds are long.
But what happens when society starts feeling hereditary?
Then the panic sets in. The public is looking around and seeing dynasties forming everywhere. It's not just the music industry or Hollywood.
Right.
We see political families trading power. We see media empires handed down. We see corporate wealth hoarding.
It feels less like a modern democracy and more like reading a history book about European royalty. You almost need a genealogical chart to understand who is starring in a movie or writing for a magazine.
You really do.
Like, yes, House Couple merged with House Schwartzman during the indie film wars of the early 2000s.
That is hilarious, but also incredibly dark.
It is, because it implies that culture is no longer a meritocracy, it's an aristocracy.
It is essentially a return to feudalism. But instead of inheriting castles and titles, this new aristocracy inherits exclusive podcast networks, verified accounts, and executive producer credits.
That is such a vivid way to put it.
The blue names on Wikipedia symbolize closed doors. Every time an audience discovers that yet another self-made generational talent actually came from an elite network, it reinforces this deep, sinking suspicion.
The suspicion that the game is rigged.
Right, the suspicion that the same social class is just endlessly reproducing itself, taking up all the space in culture, all while pretending their success is based entirely on merit.
So what does this all mean? The barrier to entry just keeps rising. And if art is increasingly restricted to those with pre-existing financial stability, popular culture is going to feel incredibly alienating.
It already does for a lot of people.
Because the creators are completely insulated from normal, everyday existence. They don't know what it's like to panic over a rent increase, or skip a doctor's appointment because of health insurance deductibles, or work a soul-crushing shift just to buy groceries.
But they're the ones writing the songs and directing the movies that are supposed to reflect our lives.
Exactly. They are completely disconnected from the reality of the audience they are selling their curated authenticity to. They are observing working-class life from a penthouse window and trying to write an anthem about the street.
So it's a profound disconnect.
So for you listening, the next time you discover a mysterious indie artist with a hauntingly beautiful EP recorded, alone in their bedroom, you're going to hear it differently.
You really will.
When you hear that minimalist acoustic guitar and that vintage vinyl crackle, you might not just hear music anymore. You might hear generational access. You might hear a very specific tax bracket masquerading as a starving artist.
And it's important to remember that our goal in dissecting this isn't necessarily to demand that every artist be perfectly pure, struggling, and completely untouched by privilege.
Right, because let's face it, in today's economy, artists without a safety net can barely afford to exist, let alone thrive.
Exactly. What we should demand is honesty. Honesty about how access works, honesty about the immense role of financial luck, and honesty about how culture is actually produced behind closed doors.
Before we wrap up, I know our source material leaves us with a really fascinating question to ponder.
Yes, it leads to a critical question we all need to consider moving forward. If the economic barriers continue to rise, and creating art becomes almost exclusively the domain of the wealthy, what happens to our historical record?
That is such a good point.
Think about it. In 100 years, historians are going to look back at the music, the films, and the literature of our current era, to understand how normal people lived. They will look to our art to understand our anxieties, our joys, and our daily struggles.
So what will they actually see?
Will they find an accurate reflection of humanity? Or will they just be analyzing the heavily curated diaries of an aristocracy that was merely cosplaying as the middle class?
It really makes you wonder who is actually growing the tomatoes in that dying industrial town.